If you're an investor just getting started or you already own a great property portfolio, then in this video, I'm going to share my 10 top tips and tricks that I've learned from buying over $450 million worth of property for myself and my clients as an investor. Now, there's many ways to build this team. If you're working with a buyer's agent like us, then we'll immediately introduce you to a world-class team of investors, but you can ask friends, colleagues, family members, or you can Google great advisors in your local city. When I'm building out that team, I'm always looking for experience and people that are doing or already where I want to be in the future. Now, for me as an investor who not just wants financial freedom, but wants to enjoy my life and the journey to freedom, I'm looking for investors that are balling financially, but absolutely making the most of their lives and enjoying themselves along the way. Now, the second hack and the issue I believe with 99.9% of investors is a lack of a clear plan, idea, or strategy for financial freedom. Now, realistically, as an investor, there's 3 different ways to move towards financial freedom. There is being a longer term investor where you buy high quality blue chip assets in Australia's major metro and regional markets and hold them over a 30 to 45 year period. There is working towards properties that don't just achieve great long-term growth that give you incredible cash flow and working on a strategy to pay them off in the next 15 years so that you can live the way that you want to live earlier in your life. And there's obviously the speculator, which does things like greenfield sites, off the plan units, and small developments to try and replace their income so that they can leave their job extremely quickly. Now, each of these strategies have a place in the current Australian property market, but I believe there's really just one choice point to make with your plan. And that is, am I prepared to slowly chip it away at it because I love my life and I love my job and I'm just going to accumulate long-term assets for wealth creation and a solid retirement in the future? Or like me, do you enjoy cash flow plus capital growth on your properties and want financial freedom in the next 10 to 15 years? Now, if that's you, we've done some incredible videos on our YouTube channel and our podcast titled 2 Properties to Financial Freedom and 3 Properties to Financial Freedom, where we talk about a strategy where you can go about replacing $100,000 per year of passive income within the next 15 years. Now, my third hack has to do with property management. And again, 90% of investors don't manage their expectations of their property managers properly and therefore have many issues with their rents and properties longer term. Now, what I do to set expectations at the start of the year is send my property manager an email basically saying that this is the rent that I'm looking for. Is that realistic? Talking about my expectations for maintenance and routine inspections to care for my property over the year, as well as the accounting side of the property and making sure that at the end of the financial year, I'm getting a profit and loss statement with all of the income and expenses from my property that I can easily put into a spreadsheet or give to my accountant to make my life as an investor easier. Now, my fourth hack has to do with the tax side of my investment properties. I think a major mistake that, again, 90% plus of property managers make is not catching up with their accountant before the end of the financial year. I feel like it's all well and good to go and catch up with your accountant after the financial year is over. But for me personally, I think you'd be significantly better off going and having a tax planning session with them before so that you can structure and set yourself up in the best way for the coming tax year. Another major hack that I learned the hard way as an investor is I used to put all of my expenses for all of my properties in a big plastic sleeve and walk in and spend the first hour and a half with my accountant each financial year going through those receipts and putting them into a spreadsheet. What I realized is that in my 2-hour meeting, I was spending most of it in admin that I could have done myself instead of talking about strategically my position, their ideas for moving me forward to financial freedom in my future. Since I did that and I set up good bookkeeping practices for myself with a spreadsheet where I track all of my properties, the income and the expenses, now my conversations with the accountant are more like, well, what am I missing? What would you do differently if you're in my situation? And how can I get to where I want to be sooner? And my fifth hack that, again, 80% of investors don't do regularly is open their bank accounts and look at their current interest rates and then either work with their bank manager or their mortgage broker on consistently reducing those rates over time. Now, in this current interest rate environment where rates have gone from 2 or 3% up to 6.5% to 7%, I recently reached out to my broker, got him to message my bank manager with Macquarie and asked them for a discount. Now, Macquarie said no to my broker, so I called them personally, and across all of my properties, they were able to give me a 0.5% discount on my rates, which will save me more than $15,000 in the next 12 months. I think it's extremely important to recognize that banks understand that us as homeowners and investors become complacent because it is difficult and painful to move. But in an environment like this, if you can save yourself 1% on $1,000,000, that is a $10,000 saving per annum. What I do personally in my annual to-do list, my little online tracker, is just make sure I look at all of my rates, email my broker, ask if I'm on the best rates possible, and if I'm not, look at opportunities to either improve them with my current lender or potentially change to a new one. My next hack has to do with tax depreciation. Now, I work with a company called BMT. There's another great one called Washington Brown, or your accountant can introduce you to somebody. But for most properties in Australia, we've been given the gift by the government of tax benefits associated with the properties, especially when they're newer. Again, talk to your accountant about the pros and cons for your own property. It really has everything to do with the age of the property, but that can be a significant benefit at the end of the tax year. Those reports are quite cheap, and most of those properties, if they can't save you in the first year the amount you paid for the report in tax benefits, they'll actually give you the report for free, which is amazing. Now, my next hack has everything to do with the bank accounts and the way that I structure my accounts personally. When I first started out as an investor and owned 1 to sort of 3 properties, I didn't think about this much, but as my portfolio grew over time, it became more important. Now, what I've done personally for each property is I've got the home loan account, which is the money I owe to the bank, as well as the offset account, which is that second account that you can get set up. Now, offsets are so important as investors because every single dollar that I have in the offset is $1 less that I pay in the interest for that property in the home loan. I've gone a step further than that though, and what I've basically done is I get all of the income from every single one of my properties paid into one account, all of the expenses from every single one of my properties paid out of that same account. So I've got basically a profit and loss or a ledger at the end of the financial year and week to week and month to month to know exactly where my investments are sitting right now. Now, that simple little tip of getting all the money paid into one account and out of the same account has made my life as an investor incredibly easy at tax time. Instead of mucking around for about 7 to 8 hours a year, it's now 1 hour per year. Now, another hack that I put in place in about my 11th or 12th year as an investor was to do with annual maintenance. And again, that's just in my little online Microsoft to-do list as an annual reminder at the start of the year to think about it and trigger me to do something. Now, what I've set up there is that each year or every couple of years, I get the outside of my property high pressure washed. I get a weed and feed on the garden. I get a garden tidy up. I get a bit of fertilizer and a bit of a remulch going through the gardens and also through the grass. Now, internally with the property, I normally go and get the tiles or the carpets cleaned once every few years, a really decent internal bond clean where the windows are done, all of the tracks are done, the fans are done, the air conditioned service. And then I get a handyman who's on an hourly rate to go through the property and either scrub off all of the marks on the walls or give each of the coats of the walls just a single coat of paint to make it freshened up. Now, by doing that, I'm no longer having these massive bills every 5 or 10 years on my properties where I'm having to basically fully renovate the property. And I'm keeping my tenants in a much better position, paying significantly more rent than they would if I let the property deteriorate. By doing this to my properties, I've also noticed that my average tenant is staying, instead of the 12 months that they used to, for an average of at least 5 years now because they can see that I'm looking after the property. And because I am, when I go through the properties or see my reports from my manager on their routine inspections, they're looking after them like they're their own home. Now, my next hack is along the same line, and that is I send a quick email at the start of each year to my property manager, letting her know what the process is when a tenant leaves my properties. So for me, I always organize a bond clean, a bit of a cleanup of the outside of the property, and that is because when the new tenant inherits the property or takes it over, they generally have to pass it back in as close to that condition as possible. It attracts a higher rent, a higher quality of tenant, and it means that when they pass it back to me, there's less dramas and less things for me to worry about. The last hack that I've realized personally is that it is a journey to financial freedom. Now, when I started to buy my first properties in Sydney at age 24 and 25, I wanted to be completely financially free by the time I was 30. Now, at the time of recording this, I'm 38 years of age and I'm still working towards it. I was very close to it. And then interest rates went up 4% in the last year, which took it all away. But I've learned a very, very strong lesson, which is no matter how close to your goal you are, at the end of the day and when you reach it, you'll be the same person that you are now. So when we recognize that property is really just a vehicle where you can use leverage to go from where you are to where you want to be longer term, and that the journey is really about enjoying yourself, doing the things that you value. And that's exactly what you'll be doing when you're financially free as well. You'll be spending time with the people you care about, your family, your kids, your friends. You'll be looking after yourself better. You'll be helping others more. You'll be volunteering, hopefully. You'll be traveling the world. You'll be starting that business you've always wanted to start or cutting back on that work you don't enjoy. But you can begin to do those things on your journey to financial freedom and live your values on a day-to-day basis. And my top hack that I've had to learn the hard way myself from overdoing it is to cut back and enjoy myself, not put such massive expectations on myself, and just to slowly chip away at it, whether that's buying a property this year and paying down debt next year or vice versa. It is a longer term journey. And in reality, it's going to take most of us between 10 and 15 years to get to where we want to be. So we may as well have the best time on our journey to freedom. Now, for those of you watching this who are seriously thinking about buying a property in the next 6 to 12 months, I'd love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. All you have to do is go over to www.pumpedonproperty.com, click that free strategy session button, and we can talk about where you are today, where you'd like to be longer term. We can educate you on the market and share some of our ideas and our hacks with you. And then you can go and take that with a grain of salt and smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the extremely small number of clients we work with each week. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey as an investor and to financial freedom, and we hope you get there.
Woo! That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting
Have a
cool,
spin.
bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. Look at that.
So nice, eh?
Oh.